Welcome to Dog Day Afternoon. I am Gilles Gallant with BetsTV and FTN Bets. You can follow me on Twitter at GDog5000. And it's the betting show where we talk some NFL, give some sports betting advice. Two white guys talking about the NFL. Lord knows we don't have enough of those shows. And maybe some unsolicited life advice as well. I'm going to give a few picks along the way. Main thing I want to stress, we don't take things too seriously around here. And every week, we're going to cover the latest odds in the NFL, take you into my thought process and why I think the way I do and what I clearly don't know. As I said, it's a lot that I don't know. And I've got a very special guest, somebody that is real friend in real life, friend on Twitter, Iain MacMillan with BetSided. Iain, thank you for joining me on episode 3 of Dog Day Afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Gilles. It's good to talk to you again, man.
I know. The thing is that we used to see each other like all the time, and now he has moved to New York, and I probably won't see him for a long, long time until I somehow make a venture over the border, because I don't think he's coming back.
Unless I get deported.
Yeah. I mean, you were just at a Giants game this past Sunday. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here, but we're going to talk about some things that happened here in week 3 in the NFL, Iain. And one of the things that I love to do to start off the show, and it's to throw out some ridiculous hot takes. Some of them kind of like throwing noodles on the wall. Some of them stick, some of them don't. We got to take a test of the temperature here and see if some of these stick. And it's a segment I like to call Apparently. So bear with me here, and this is kind of what we do. So the first thing that I think is apparent, we're going to start it off here. Apparently, the Kansas City Chiefs won't make the playoffs. Iain, they have lost 2 games right now by the Ravens and the Chargers. They probably should have lost week 1 against Cleveland. They've got a tough schedule here. They're going to be playing Buffalo here in about 2 weeks. Tell me, Iain, is this a hot take here? Is it apparent it is to me, it is to you, that the Kansas City Chiefs will not make the playoffs in 2021?
First of all, Gilles, I think you know just about as good as anyone that I love a good hot take. There's nothing more that I love more than a hot take. This one, I don't hate it, to be honest, man, because, I mean, everyone gets seduced by this Chiefs offense. They get seduced by Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. But there's 2 sides of the football, my friend, and the Kansas City Chiefs have the worst defense in the NFL through the first 3 weeks. So unless they learn how to stop someone on offense, they might miss the playoffs here, especially in the division, which is turning out to be a lot stronger of a division than a lot of people think. So I don't hate it, man. I don't hate it.
And what's crazy too, man, is before the season started, I think it was plus 2,000, might have even been up to plus 3,000. Like they have the highest odds for any team to miss the playoffs this year. I think their record is accurate. I think it should be 1-2. I mean, I would argue that they probably should have lost the Cleveland game, should have won the Ravens game. I think week 3, I think they clearly lost against the Chargers here. But for myself, when I look at this Chiefs team, obviously they're playing it's really hard to count this team out, but it just, defenses, especially with the injuries, I'm not really sure this is a defense that's going to get better as the season progresses. And I'm just a little worried about, you look at their division, you've got the 3-0 Raiders, you've got the 3-0 Broncos, the Chargers already have a win over them. Just the fact that even just considering the Chiefs as a wild card team is probably right now where they would probably end up, depending on how the other teams in front of them go. So, Iain, we're going to move on to the next subject here. And again, I wanted to talk about this because, like I said, you attended the Giants game facing the Falcons this past Sunday. And apparently, the Atlanta Falcons are not the worst team in football. I legitimately thought going into that game that they were going to lose and they were going to go to 0-3. We were going to have another cry fest on Twitter about how Matt Ryan is overrated, underrated. I don't want to jump on your toes here and take away a lot of the Falcons takes that you have, but there wasn't a lot to be encouraged by the Falcons, through the first 2 weeks of the season. And after that win, especially as gutty as it was, and I know it's the Giants, how hot of a take is that? Do you think that we're still along the bottom 5 for Atlanta Falcons team, or what are you thinking here for the Falcons going into week 4?
Yeah, I would say bottom 5. I actually wrote an article at BetSided. I think it might have been after week 1. I might have jumped on it right away, but the title was literally that the Atlanta Falcons are the worst team in the NFL They're bad, man. Even though they won that game against the Giants, to see them in live, to see them playing live right in front of my face, they're not good. Both teams' offenses in that game were just absolutely abysmal. I've been defending Matt Ryan for the past 3 years, it feels like, but after watching that game, now he clutched up in the fourth quarter. I think he was like 11 for 12, led the game-winning drive. But I didn't like what I saw from him in the first 3 quarters. He's gun shy. He looks like he's like immediately looking for his check down instead of seeing some things downfield that were open for him. So I might be jumping off the Matt Ryan kind of bandwagon here, but no, they're not the worst team in the NFL. I agree with that. It's one of the 2 New York teams, or it's Jacksonville. It has to be. But then probably the 4th worst team are the Atlanta Falcons. They're still not a good team. They probably should have lost that game against the Giants. There was a few timely penalties that worked in their favor that kind of saved them. They're not a good team. Worst team? No.
Would you say that the Atlanta Falcons are better than the Houston Texans?
No. I think the Houston Texans are a better team, especially with Tyrod Taylor quarterback. I actually think the Houston Texans have some veterans on that team. They know how to win football games. I don't know about the Falcons. No,
it's Olamide season, man. My co-host Brendan Deeg with Touchdown Town, he took Olamide's Zacchaeus at plus 380 to score a touchdown, and was just like, look, he's the wide receiver too now, and then he scores the touchdown over Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley. I couldn't believe it. So, all right, we're gonna move on to the third subject here, and apparently, Ian, the Bills are gonna average 40 points per game this season, because this offense, to me, like, they cannot be stopped. If you look at some of the teams, they've got the Texans coming up here. They're going to be playing the Chiefs, the Titans as well on deck. That's 3 defenses to me that are significantly below average. You watch them put up 35 points on the Dolphins. I know that you could say that, it was Tua who got hurt and that was just game script with that flip, but the Dolphins are a pretty good defense. And then obviously Washington's defense was fairly hyped up coming into the season. They dropped 40 on them. How hot of a take is it to say that the Bills will average close to 40 points per game this season?
It's a pretty hot take. I mean, what did they do in week 1? They didn't do much in week 1.
16 points against the Steelers.
And the Steelers are supposed to be a top-ranked defense, but then they haven't looked good the past 2 weeks since playing the Bills. So I would say that's a hot take, to be honest. Out of the 3, even though at face value that one doesn't sound like the hottest one, I think that's probably the hottest one you've had so far. 40 points a game is a lot.
That's a lot.
I don't know. We'll see.
You have to have a couple 50 burgers throughout the year to get to that level. And even I know that, like, some of these takes I'm throwing out there, they're just going to fall off the wall once I throw the noodle. But at the same time, there is some validity in saying that they're going to probably be the top scoring offense this year. I had bet them before the season started at plus 1,000 to be the highest scoring team in the league this year. Right now, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I don't know if, obviously injuries, whatever, it's the NFL. A lot can happen, especially in a 17-game season now in 16 games. But for me, after 3 weeks, feel very encouraged, especially when they still have yet to play the Jets. They still have the Dolphins another time as well. The Patriots. Just, you're looking at the schedule, I think they could still put up at least 30 points per game against a lot of these top defenses. So now, Ian, we're going to move on to the next segment here. I like to look at some futures odds for 3 specific teams every week, looking at some different stuff like Super Bowl or MVP, maybe some divisional odds. And the first team I want to look at is the team that I think had the best win of week 3, and it was the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers to win the Super Bowl now are 18-1. Justin Herbert's MVP odds completely dropped. They're down to 11-1. Derwin James having a nice resurgence season after injury. Comeback player of the year odds sitting at 16-1. And the Chargers at 2-1, plus 475 to win the division. Of these 4 futures odds, Ian, which one would you feel comfortable laying a unit on?
I mean, if Dak Prescott wasn't in contention for comeback player of the year, then I'd say that for Derwin James. But I guess I'll have to go with the Chargers to win the AFC West at plus 475. If the Chiefs can't put together a competent defense, then the next team up in that division is going to be the Chargers, even though the Raiders and Broncos are 3-0. I mean, I don't think they're the best teams in the division, but I don't think the Chargers, I wouldn't bet on them to win the Super Bowl. I don't love their odds there. I guess for them to win the division, if the Chiefs can't pick it up, then it has to be the Chargers next.
Yeah, it's a little buy low or buy high, I guess, right now because they're 18-1. But starting the season, they were plus 3,000, maybe even plus 3,300, depending on the book. So you're getting them probably at their lowest odds. And depending on how this Monday's game goes against the Raiders, you might see these odds drop even more on both the divisional side and the Super Bowl because, playing the Raiders here. So the of those four, I kind of agree with you. I don't think I would take Herbert for MVP at this point. But I do think that right now, if I had to pick MVP, I still think it's probably going to be Brady. If I had to pick, I worry about Kyler's health, as it's going throughout the season. But anyway, we'll talk more about that as we keep going. The next team I want to look at now is a team that is not your favorite team, but one of your best friend's favorite teams, Indianapolis Colts. A Trite special here. The Indianapolis Colts. Yes, shout out to Rob Trites to win Super Bowl here, down to 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. I had to throw this one in just for giggles here. Carson Wentz, NFL MVP, sitting there at plus 30,000, and Frank Reich, NFL Coach of the Year, at plus 5,000. But the Colts divisional odds, that one caught my eye, still at 0-3 to come back and win the AFC South at plus 375. Ian, of those four, do any of those entice you to actually bet on it?
I don't love any of them, to be honest. I mean, this Colts team absolutely stinks. 0-3. The BetSided power rankings released this morning, we have put them, I think, like the 23rd team. They stink. So, I mean, for the second pick in the row, I guess I have to take the divisional odds at plus 375. But I do kind of have a case for why I kind of like that bet. It's because I don't believe in the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans still, just like last year so far through the first 3 weeks, they have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So I think that division is the worst division in football right now. Obviously, the Jaguars or the Texans aren't going to win the division. So if teams are able to keep scoring on this Titans defense, the Colts might be able to sneak back into it. So, I mean, the other three bets have absolutely no shots. Carson Wentz to win MVP is hilarious. So if anyone
even was still listing them.
Yeah, the only one that's even like remotely has a chance of happening is for them to win the division. And because I think the Titans aren't as good as a lot of people are giving them credit for, I don't hate that at plus 375. Not bad.
Yeah, sitting at 0-3 with the Titans at 2-1, it's an uphill battle, especially with losing already once to the Titans. But they still have the 4 games against the Texans and Jaguars. So, I mean, let's say 3-1. I mean, you could probably, to be conservative, they'll probably go 4-0 in those games. But the fact that, the Colts still have quite a bit of talent. I think just what worries me right now is there's just a lot of injuries. I think I'm pretty sure Quentin Nelson was carted off the field this past week. Carson Wentz is made of glass. You don't know if he's going to even play. For example, I bet on Jacob Eason to score a touchdown this past weekend, thinking I'm great. Everything is going to be fine. Sitting there at plus 1,100. Oh, Sunday morning, Wentz is going to play. It's like, all right, man, like how injured were you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you going to play or not? And that's what I worry about this team is this week to week, this day to day. Like the whole team just feels like day to day. You know what I mean? So I can't feel good about that. So let's just say right now, I think both you and I agree that the AFC South is probably the only conceivable one that you could probably look at this point. Still don't love it sitting there 0-3, even though they could conceivably, maybe still go 5-1 in the division at this point if they all their cards fall right. But the margin for error is very slim.
Yeah.
Next team, similar boat here. A lot of people were on this team coming into the year, especially for some of the player odds for futures. It's the Seattle Seahawks. And to win the Super Bowl for the Seahawks right now, they're down to 30-1. Russell Wilson for MVP still sitting at 20-1. Pete Carroll to win Coach of the Year at 40-1. And at 1-2 to win the NFC West, sitting there at 6-1. Ian, of these four, do any of these entice you to want to bet on for the Seahawks?
Yeah, the one I'm looking at for this one's actually Russell Wilson to win MVP at 20-1. I actually think that's a pretty decent value bet right now. He's leading the NFL in quarterbacks in yards per pass attempt. I think he's like averaging like something like over 10, maybe even like 11 yards per pass attempt. Best out of all NFL starting quarterbacks. His completion percentage, I think, is in the top 5. I think he's around 5th or 6th. So maybe if the Seahawks start throwing the ball a little bit more, kind of open up their offense a little bit more, Russell Wilson's numbers are there. They're just not like the percentages are there. Just the overall total numbers aren't there. So if they start throwing the ball a little bit more, he could put himself in contention. I think it's a value pick at 20-1. I mean, if the odds were all even, would I be betting on him to win MVP? Absolutely not. But at 20-1, I don't think you're going to get a better value bet at that price.
Yeah, for the talent especially, and just with the road that they still have to play, because they've yet to play a divisional game, and every game of that is going to be must-see TV. Playing against the Niners or the Rams, if he shows out, his MVP stock is just going to go through the roof. If he has like a 4-touchdown, 350-yard game, maybe rushes for a touchdown, very conceivable to do given his talent and skill set. I think just what I worry about right now with the other ones, especially of winning Super Bowl, I'm just worried that they'll even make the playoffs at this point because of that division. I was joking when we had Joe on in the first week. I thought, is there a chance that all 4 teams could make the playoffs out of this division? It's very long shot odds, but right now they're the team that's looking like the long shot to make it at this point. And I would have thought that would have been the 49ers coming into the year if I had to pick a team of that. Now it's still very early in the season, it's 3 weeks, but winning the NFC West is 6-1. I feel like it's still half decent odds just because they still have to play all the teams within the division. But yeah, at this point, I think right now Russell Wilson for MVP at 20-1 probably attracts me a little bit more than the NFC West division. And week 4 odds, Ian, I sent you 4 games before we came on for the show today. And of these 4 games, I'm going to read them off. And I want to see if of these 4, if any of them have caught in your eye, if you're going to want to bet on them. The first one is, has my Cowboys in it. Panthers +5 versus the Cowboys, or Cowboys -5 favorites at home. Browns as a 1.5 favorite over the Vikings on the road. Cardinals 6-point underdogs to the Rams, and Bucks as 6.5-point favorites over the Patriots for the Adele New England Patriots. Oh my God. Sorry. Before we even, that video to me really disturbed me and really annoyed me. Before we even talk about those games, Ian, is that one of the worst pieces of NFL content you've watched this season?
Oh, one of the best, unintentionally, one of the funniest things I've seen. I think I tweeted it out. Just objectively, one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. I laughed out loud when I saw that. I tweeted it out, and people were like, "Oh man, I think this is a pretty cool promo." I got some tears watching this. It's like, guys, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady weren't dating; they weren't married, and then had a big messy divorce. They were employed by the same football team. Let's gear down on the Adele songs here, guys.
Yeah. So, of the 4 games here, is there any of those 4 that you're considering betting from a spread standpoint? Maybe you want to take a money line underdog. Ian, what are you thinking of those 4?
Yeah, one of my favorite bets of the week already. Now, I haven't gone through the slate completely and locked in my bets just yet, but I can guarantee you I will be betting on the Cardinals to cover the spread there against the Rams. The way to beat the Cardinals this season has been running the ball. They have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, but that's not where the Rams kind of make their money. The Rams are a passing football team. They've shown that. I think they rank 4th right now in the NFL in the percentage of yards that they get are through the air. Obviously, a big part of that is because of how banged up their backfield is. And the Cardinals have a pretty half-decent pass defense. So it's going to be tough to kind of beat the Cardinals by more than a touchdown if you're throwing the ball, which is exactly what the Rams do. So, we saw with the Cardinals so far this season, teams are able to kind of run the ball down their throat. The Vikings did it. James Robinson had success on the ground against them last week, but the Rams just don't have that explosive running back to really attack this Cardinals defense. So 6 points. I think Rams probably should still win the game, but I think it's going to be a close one. And obviously, Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford, the 2 MVP candidates going at it. Kyler Murray just looks unstoppable so far. Speaking, you were talking about hot takes earlier in the show there, Gilles. I think I had a hot take right before Kyler Murray's rookie season. That I think I said he was going to last 3 seasons in the NFL and then be out. So hand up, that hot take was dead wrong. Kyler Murray's now like an MVP candidate, and I think he's going to do well against this Rams defense as well, which has looked pretty good so far. But I think 6 points is too much. I think this Cardinals team is a lot better than a lot of people think. And the Rams don't match up stylistically as well as some other teams do against this Cardinals defense. So I'll take Cardinals and the points in that one.
No, I agree. And I think that was probably of the four, that was the one that I actually felt that I liked the most. And one of the reasons why I was eyeing it as well, specifically for touchdown scores, because I was kind of trying to project what the lines would be and looking to see what Kyler Murray was for an anytime touchdown the last time he played in Los Angeles. And he was sitting around there around plus 120, plus 130. So I'm hoping that I can get those odds again, because I might just take that instead of the spread, because I feel like Kyler is the type of player that it's such a roller coaster with him. Like, and that team really is just that at one point, you don't know if he's just going to throw it into double coverage and get picked. And then another thing, he just throws this bomb and then Nuke just jumps over everybody and catches it. And you just, again, it's so unpredictable that I feel like stats are almost hard to quantify what you're seeing on the field and watching on your TV.
And I will say about the Cardinals really quick. There's like a small handful of teams in the NFL who are like their offense is so explosive that they're never fully out of the game. And the Cardinals offense is one of those teams. Same with the Chiefs, where they could just score. I mean, we saw last week against the Jaguars. They were losing in the third quarter and ended up winning by what, like 2 touchdowns almost?
Yeah, I mean, some of that could have been Trevor Lawrence, but I know what you mean.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. But with a 6-point spread, I mean, the Rams could be up, 14, 17 points. And then before you know it, it's a 3-point game late in the game. So,
no, I agree. So, so Cardinals as well. I think the one that I was looking at as well is Bucks minus 6.5 versus the Patriots. I know a couple of people who got the look ahead line and was able to get a little earlier at the minus 4.5. But the 6.5, it went a little bit, but I like it within a touchdown. That was the thing. If it starts to keep climbing where it's maybe 7.5, that's too much. I can't take the Bucks in that spot. But I feel like within a touchdown here, I think that might be a solid bet there, especially with the way that the Patriots just can't stop running the ball. And I think one of the things that you'll see in this game is I think you're going to see a lot of Leonard Fournette and Rojo. Because I think what you're going to see is they're going to try to take away Mike Evans and Chris Godwin a lot. And I think that the Bucs will be able to actually score on them fairly easily. I think the Rams, with how strong their defense is, I think some people might be thrown off the scent of how good that Bucs offense actually is. But again, that's kind of just initial reaction. I don't know if that's something that I'm actually going to lock in by the time we get into Sunday.
Yeah.
Ian,
So I just really quick thoughts about that game as well, because I agree with you. I like the Bucs, and I think the Rams showed the weakness that the Bucs have, which is that you can take the top off their defense if you have an explosive offense and really throw the ball against them. Mm-hmm. But then the Patriots are the complete opposite. They do not have any explosiveness on their offense. They're not taking the top off any defense whatsoever. So tough stylistic matchup for the Patriots.
The only player I could think of, and just if I keep always going back to the touchdown score angle, is that if Mac Jones ever decides to unload and throw it for maybe more than 5 to 10 yards, Nelson Aguilar anytime touchdown might be the one to look at, because again, just with his deep ability.
Unlike Aguilar.
Yeah.
Every time I hear his name, I think of that meme. It's a great
one. Now, Ian, I'm not sure if people can tell or just, we obviously have a good relationship, but we don't really take things too seriously. And one of the things that I've noticed as well, and you probably noticed in our time of, gambling Twitter, maybe since 2017, 2018, is that, as our followers have grown and our voices and platform has increased, people take almost everything we say as like gospel. And I kind of wanted to know, Ian, I asked this to Joe, I asked this to Jeff Shasby, Old Man Who Bets, when he was on last week. Why do people in gambling Twitter take everything that we say so seriously? Like as if it's like a gospel or like we're politicians, like, you know what I mean? And not creating content and trying to be humorous. I want to know from your perspective, why do you think that is?
I think there's two different angles. I think there's other content creators who take themselves too seriously. I think that's a big part of it. But I think more what you're talking about are the people who follow us and take what we say too seriously and then kind of get mad at us if we lose a pick or come at us like as if we pretend like we're professional sports bettors or something like that. I think a big thing is I think people bet too much money on sports. I know that might be kind of counterintuitive to what we're doing since this is our whole industry, but everyone thinks that they're smarter than sports books, and you aren't. Almost nobody is, and even those who are still have losing months, losing years. People just think sports betting is a quick way to get rich, and it's not. It's tough, man. It's damn near impossible when you factor in things like VIG, like juice, line movement, CLV. It's tough. And I think people's unit size and how much they bet is like an ego thing. Like, they don't want to admit that they bet small, or they want to show off about, how much they're betting on a certain game. I think everyone needs to relax a little bit. I think that's a big thing that we're trying to do at BetSided is kind of explain to people that sports betting should just be for entertainment. It's if you're a casual person, don't expect to win a lot of money. This is for entertainment. In my opinion, the best thing about sports betting is it just makes watching the games more exciting. And when you lose any game, no matter what you're watching, and and especially helpful in these primetime games between two junk teams like the Jaguars and Bengals this week, although respect to the Bengals are 2-1. When you lose a bet, your reaction should be, darn, that's on to the next thing. Like, if you get legitimately angry and you get that sick feeling in your stomach when you lose a bet, you're betting too much. Reduce it. I don't care if you have to go all the way down to $5 a bet, $2 a bet. You need to find what that is. You need to put it in your budget, set only a certain amount aside each month to gamble. And when you lose that much, then you have to wait till the next month before you go back to betting, or reduce your bets till $1 until that point. I think we need to put our egos aside and realize, guys, you'll have good weeks, you'll have good months, but over the long term, sports books are probably going to win. So let's just do it for fun. Reduce your bet size. Don't attach your bet size to your ego. So I think that's a big part of it. I think people take it too seriously and take us too seriously because they're putting too much money on it, because I think it's a way to get rich quick.
And that is the exact point that I was going to make, is that I think people think about almost like gambling as if like it's like an infomercial, like that infomercial of like, make money now, like get rich quick. And then just see these parlays that people are posting, like where they put $1 in, like that guy who had the 16-leg parlay with the Lions and the Packers and still won 6 figures off of it. But nobody ever tells anybody about the losing tickets that guy had to do,
the
probably
thousands of pounds. Yeah.
So that's what I'm getting at. It's just, I think a lot of the time people need to kind of understand that being profitable should be the most important thing. It doesn't matter how much profit it is. I mean, ROI is obviously still important too, but being profitable, not trying to get rich so you don't ever have to gamble again or bet again, is not the goal here. And I think a lot of the time people lose sight of that, especially a lot of the casual bettors or people who are new to the betting space, who see me hit a plus 500 touchdown score bet and think that I'm going to do that every time, when they're not understanding implied probabilities, and they're not understanding, the fact that I only hit like 30 to 35% of my touchdown bets at this point anyway. And even that is exceeding expectations. So I think that's the one thing, is that I think people need to kind of maybe gear down a little bit and maybe just kind of understand that. Try to make it more so it's entertainment. If you make some money along the way, that's great. If you don't make any money along the way, it's non-consequential because you didn't bet enough where it's going to break you. And I think that's the main thing that I think a lot of people have lost sight in when they enter this space.
Yeah, I mean, I bet on all 272 NFL games this year. My goal is literally just to be profitable. If I'm up 1 unit at the end of the season, I'm fist pumping because it's a success. So, but I also think some of that responsibility lands on us kind of people in the content world, where I think some people, because it's an easy way to get followers, they put out, follow these picks and you'll get rich, or you want money, follow these picks. So some of the responsibility does kind of fall on us to educate these people and let them know, yes, a lot of the content creators are better than the average person at betting on sports, but that still doesn't mean that we're going to get rich doing it.
Well, and also don't tail blindly. Like, do some research, cross-reference with people's picks, and see if you come to the same conclusion. And that, I think, will only help you in the long run, because being educated as a bettor is just as important as being a profitable and winning bettor, in my opinion. Now, Iain, before we jump into rapid fire Q&A here, I want to touch again on you moving to New York, because I feel like this is such a fish out of water story here. And I need to know more about this, because I don't get to talk to you very often anymore. Just, you've basically cut ties off with anybody that you used to be friends with now that you're living in the bigger city. And I wanted to know, moving to New York and even the United States in general, I'm sure you had some like stereotypes or ideas in your head on like how it would be and how it would go. And I want to know, from your perspective, what was the biggest misconception of becoming a resident of the United States? Like something you entered and you thought, okay, this is going to be what it is. And then you're like, whoa, this isn't how I pictured it at all.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really have too many crazy expectations, because in my opinion, people are basically the same down here. Like, there's not really that, like, there is a stereotype that Americans, especially in New York City, are like super rude and kind of, We'll do anything, we'll step over you. Hey, that has been my experience. I haven't had a single person that's been rude to me the entire time that I've been here. Everyone I've talked to has been super nice. Strangers have been nice. I will say that here compared to Canada, the one thing where I wouldn't call it rude, but like cashiers and people in the service industry are a lot less I think in Canada they're like overwhelmingly nice. Hello, How are you doing? Great day. In America, like you'll go up to buy like a bagel or something and they're just like on their cell phone looking through text, and will like, if it takes them 30 seconds to answer the text, you just have to stand there and wait for 30 seconds, and they're just like, yeah, what do you want? Okay, yeah, here you go. Now it's not necessarily rude, it's a little bit more kind of just straight to the point, but I think there's a stereotype that especially New Yorkers are rude, and I haven't experienced that at all. But I've only been here a month, so we'll see.
New York City, not as rude as you think. That's basically the conclusion that I've come for that. So that's great. Yes. That's perfect. Put that on the tourist brochure. I love it. All right. So now we're going to start a rapid fire Q&A. I start basically don't overthink it. We're just going to do it quick as possible here. And we're going to start off with a question that I ask. Nice little layup bunny question here, Ian. Who's winning the AFC North?
Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns are my Super Bowl picks. I got to back them.
All right. Now, frauds. One of the bits and shticks that you have in sports betting for me is identifying a true team that is a fraud and punching above their weight. Ian, which team in the NFL is a fraud?
Tennessee Titans, and I touched on this earlier. They're one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Derrick Henry's, I think, going to take a bit of a step back, although to be fair, I don't think he had. I think he probably still leading rusher through the first 3 weeks. But the Tennessee Titans are frauds. I'm saying it right now. I wouldn't be shocked if they missed the playoffs.
Oh, we're going to clip that. All right. Question number 3. This one is F, marry, kill. All right, Ian, these are 3 people. You have to decide if you're going to F, marry, or kill. I'm going to present you 3 people. For? I'll let you use your imagination. First one, someone who prefers crunchy burnt bacon. That's one. Second person, someone who insists on watching Iain MacMillan's high school football highlights on repeat daily. 3, someone who thinks the album Aquarium is the worst album of all time.
Oh, the second person was someone who insists on watching my highlight tape 24/7.
They watch it daily on repeat in the background all the time.
Okay, so I will kill the person who thinks that the Aqua album is the worst of all time, because who even thinks that? I don't know if anyone even exists who thinks that. I mean, it's clearly a top 5 album.
I need to see Dr. Jones if that's the case.
Exactly. I will F the person who burns bacon, because that person's just a degenerate if they don't know how to properly cook and eat bacon. So I kind of like that dirty aspect of them, I guess. If they're just that big of a degenerate, they're burning their bacon every morning. That person's insane. I kind of like that. And then obviously I'm going to marry the person who wants to watch my highlight tape. Now that it was basically a lifetime ago, but a nice ego boost every now and then. I'm going to get sick of watching it by about the 2-hour mark of the first day, but nothing wrong with someone who, can kind of boost my ego a little bit, I guess.
Someone you could set your watch to when you hurdle that guy,
Yeah,
exactly. All right, now, true or false? Dating somebody with the birthday of March 28th is a deal breaker for you.
Why? Because of March Madness?
Nope.
Oh, okay. 328. Okay, that took me a second. Never thought about that, but yeah, that might be a deal breaker, man. I see 28-3 too much in my life already. I like every day. So it would be
if they were like, I'm an Aries, March 28th, you're like, that's a red flag. No thanks.
I hadn't thought about that, but moving forward, it has to. I can't marry someone who's born on 328.
All right, well, we're going to move back to some NFL. True or false? Derek Carr is going to lead the league in passing yards, over 1,200 in 3 weeks. Just passing the ball extremely well, has some deep weapons. True or false? Derek Carr will lead the NFL in passing yards in 2021.
That's a great question. I'll say false. I think there's just too many other contenders. Josh Allen, you brought up earlier. The Bills throw the ball a lot. Russell Wilson's averaging the most yards per attempt. I'll say false, but I'm not confident about that one, man. I like Derek Carr.
And then even Mahomes as well. If the defense keeps struggling, he's going to have to keep passing. You can start seeing some 500-yard passing games very routinely. Moving on to Thursday Night Football, Jaguars, Bengals. Cincy is -7.5. Which side are you taking here?
Jaguars. I mean, I don't. Bengals are 2-1. They've looked good through the first 3 weeks, but do they deserve being over touchdown favored against anyone in the NFL? I don't think so. Jaguars have looked bad. James Robinson has finally starting to get some touches and getting some yards though. So 7. I mean, and you know this. Anything over 7 points is tough, man. That magic number of 7. So I don't think the Bengals are. I would set this line at Bengals like -6, -6.5. I don't think the Bengals are deserving of being 7. But I said the same thing about the Panthers last week, and we saw what happened against the Texans. So I could be wrong, but I'll be back in the Jaguars for sure. It stinks, it sucks, but I'll plug my nose and lock in that bet on the Jaguars.
Sticking with the Jaguars, Ian, if someone offered you 10,000 to 1 odds for the Jags to make the playoffs this year, and you have to bet a full unit on it, would you take that bet? At 0-3, you would take that bet even at plus 10,000?
Yeah, my unit's probably because my unit's not as big as a lot of people would think. But we talked about that earlier. We're putting ego aside. Yeah, I'd be willing to lose a unit on that. At 10,000 to 1, you got to take that bet.
Kevin Malone special.
Exactly.
Final question, Ian. And this one is not rapid fire. It's going to be a little more elaborate here. Please explain to everyone here the proper way to cook bacon. The floor is yours.
So some people like to do it in the oven. That's fine. I just do stovetop. But the key to good bacon is you got to let it cook slowly. People rush their bacon. We were talking about earlier about people who burn their bacon. I apologize for any sirens in the background. That's living in New York for you.
Added production value, bro.
But you got to slow cook it. Like it takes me a good 30 to 45 minutes to cook that bacon. And then the smell wafts through your apartment, wafts through your house. It's beautiful. It's a great smell to wake up to. But everybody, slow down on the bacon. Put it on first. As soon as you wake it up, put it on, and then get ready for the rest of your day. Get a shower, do your makeup, whatever. And then by the time you're ready for your day, the bacon's ready. You got to let it slow cook because then it's a perfect mix of both crunchy and chewy. So slow down the cooking on the bacon.
I love it. I love it. Now, this is Iain MacMillan from BetSided. He also has his own podcast called Bacon Bets Podcast. So, Ian, tell the folks who are watching how they can find your work, what you've got going on, and just plug some stuff you've got going on.
Yeah, best way to find me is on Twitter at Iain MacBets, IAIN. My parents decided to throw in an extra I to make my life difficult. IAINMAC Bets on Twitter. I'm writing articles every day at BetSided, so be sure to head over to BetSided. If you even just go to my author page, it'll give you a list of all the articles. I do multiple of those a day. Golf is a big one. Released my golf preview for the Sanderson Farms Championship. I know it's football season, but golf season never ends, so check that out as well. And then, as you mentioned, at Bacon Bets Podcast, I'm doing the road to 272 bets, betting on every single game of the season. And each week, that episode drops on Thursday morning, so keep an eye out for that as well.
Love it. All right, well, that's all from me. I want to thank Ian again for taking time out of his day to come join us here on Dog Day afternoon. All of my writing content is over at FTN Bets. You can find it in NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball for Gilles Gallant. And you can catch me every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern for Touchdown Town, where I give out my best touchdown scorer picks of the week. And thank you for watching Dog Day afternoon. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. Bon chance.